Aloha. I'm going to change this orientation. I think I can somehow. What does that do? Oh, no. Okay. I don't know. We'll go like this. So, pardon me. I look terrible. I've just been shooting pictures nonstop. Um, been shooting pictures nonstop for about 2 days. I've taken 6,300 pictures of pictures. My grandfather was like, you know, a big shot businessman and mining engineer, and his hobby was photography, but it was really like his passion. And film and cartoons. He loved comedy. He loved Charlie Chaplin. Anyway, I'm taking it upon myself to take a picture of every picture he ever took, because I think he's basically like a undiscovered amazing photographer who shot photos in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s of all the best places in the world. I mean, it's unbelievable. And if you've seen any of my videos, by the way, aloha, welcome to All Good Things and All Good Time, where life is always good. Good day to be alive. So I've got pictures of, the Rock of Gibraltar. Like 25, 30 different states, maybe. I could do subcategories of pictures just from a certain state, or pictures of a certain subject. And there's so many of them. He covered all, and they traveled so much. Like, no one in today's world could travel as much as my grandfather and grandmother did, and film it and shoot it. And I mean, there's probably, I don't know, maybe another 10,000 pictures. I'm not sure. It's a discovery process. But for the videos I've shown you and that I have more of, I have exact dates and names of the people in the videos and movies, which is just awesome. I hope to become a detective. I hope to meet some of the ancestors of the people my, great-grandpa was friends with, those families and stuff. It would be really interesting. And to give them some pictures of their relatives, which I have. I have the pictures of thousands of people's relatives. Literally. I mean, my grandpa took like 20,000 pictures over a 30-year period and labeled every damn picture with everyone's name, the date, the place, and they were always every place people still go. There's so many pictures I could go take that are in the same perspective of my grandpa back in the 100 years ago. 100 years later, 95 years later, the same picture. Anyway, I mean, it's small towns, big cities. It's artistic shots. There's a lot of mining shots, cows. My grandmother raised cattle. My grandpa was into mines, freaking cars, mansions, all the best places. Basically, they had a ton of money, so they just went to all these fancy places, and anyway. So, but I just discovered the most amazing thing. The one thing I was so bummed about losing in the fire in Lahaina was this. I didn't know there was another copy somewhere. So what happened was, my great-great-grandma, her daughter, or two daughters, one daughter, she wrote like a report, a term paper, on her mom. And I had a copy of that, and there's stuff in here that's freaking amazing. You know what I mean? And you're about to hear the story of this lady's life, which is so cool. I'm going to read it to you. And it is history that nobody knows. And I think this is the kind of woman that should have statues built in her honor. Anyway, and a woman so far ahead of her time, it's not even funny. And then also this bloodline connection, which brings it right up to her, from Hannah Duston. And Hannah Duston was the first woman in America to have a statue built in her honor, right? Which is just cool. And so anyway, I'm going to turn the camera on this and I'll read you her story. And her, oh my God, and her brother. It's just one page on her brother. His story is freaking amazing. And I don't know if his stories are, and these stories could be movies. I mean, easily. I wouldn't, if I wanted to become a movie maker and make kick-ass movies, it'd be a while before I was done with my own family, and those stories would be so awesome. Like my great-grandfather survived 26 attempts on his life. All that violence would make a great film. So, all right, I'm going to show this to you. I'm in my brother's garage. Oh, just stooping over, taking pictures. My neck hurts so much. But man, I've got 6,200 pictures that no one's ever seen. Anyway, and they're pretty cool. Like Ansel Adams got great pictures in like a couple of places. My grandpa took a bunch of pictures, everywhere from Istanbul, Cairo, England, France, Italy, Hawaii, Japan, all parts of Canada, Mexico, 30 different states, big cities, small towns. I mean, it's just, and everything labeled. I mean, it's just so cool. A lot of, they're small little black and whites, but they're extraordinary. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'm about to read you the story of Virginia Shearer Bradley. And first I'm going to show you the bloodline and how it connects to the Dustins and then to her, which is kind of cool. And this goes back to the 1600s, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to turn this around. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having a great day. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff. I am task-oriented. All right, so check this out. So this is Hannah Dustin. Thomas Dustin and Hannah Emerson, but Hannah Dustin, right? First woman in America to have a statue built in her honor. And the second statue built in a woman's honor was also of her. And it's just the craziest, gnarliest story. I have told it, but I'm not going to bother with it. Anyway, yeah, it's a crazy story. If you want to look up, and that will make the most of it. Plenty of violence, make a great movie. Just, you don't need to embellish history at all. Anyway, so their son Jonathan Dustin had Hannah Dustin, the granddaughter, and her daughter Elizabeth Page married Amos Bradley. And his son Joshua Bradley married Mary Poor. And Mary Poor and they had Daniel Poor Bradley, and he married Martha Reed. And their son, Henry Sewell Bradley, married Virginia Shearer, the woman I'm about to tell you the story of. And Henry Sewell was the first surveyor of Nevada City, California. Drew the first city map and finished it in 1869. And maybe I'll publish. I have a video I haven't ever published of me talking to the current surveyor of Nevada City in his office, and he pulls out the map and shows it to me and stuff. It's kind of cool. Anyway, this is some good stuff, but here we go. This is like so cool. This is the thing I was the most sad about losing, and I just found it, and it's, so born in Winchester, Virginia, January 9th, 1843. Oh, I need glasses. Virginia was the second child of a family of 9 children, of whom 6 died in infancy. The other 2 to attain their majority were George Martin Eichelberger Shearer, named for an ancestor, Martin Eichelberger, of a prominent Maryland family, with a Vaughn before the name, and Elizabeth, who married Frank Schisler, of Grangeville, Nez Perce County, Idaho. With her mother, brother, and sister, Virginia Shearer left her southern home and went to California by way of Isthmus of Panama. They arrived in San Francisco in June 1855. There, meeting her father, who had been in California since 1852. The family proceeded at once to Parks Bar, Yuba County, 13 miles above Marysville. In the summer of 1921, I went to Parks Bar and picked figs from some trees planted there by my grandfather in these early days. Virginia's father conducted a general merchandise store at Parks Bar, and one also at Smartsville, Nevada County, and helped build there the fine Excelsior Hotel. In 1857, he went to Scott's Bar, Siskiyou County, and mined until 1862, when during the heavy storms of that year, his mine slid off into the river. Virginia was sent to a young ladies' seminary at Benicia in 1856, where she distinguished herself as in mathematics, having passed a rigid test in that line conducted by some of the United States of America's officers then stationed at Benicia. This school was conducted by Miss Atkins and had a fine reputation. It was later purchased by Mrs. Mills and is Mills College today. Virginia Shearer remained at Miss Atkins until 1858. On the first day of July of that year, at Parks Bar, she was married to Henry Sewell Bradley. She had then reached the great age of 15 and a half years. Her husband was a civil engineer, a neighbor of the Shearer family at Parks Bar, who naturally became interested in the young lady of the family, who spent her vacations at home. Tradition has it that Virginia's father opposed this union, and because of his daughter's age, and that she was married during his absence from home. Oh, excuse me. Ooh, water. Oh, hey, can you open this for me? I have one hand. Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you so much. Okay, I got some water. All right. So, tradition had it that her father opposed the marriage, and they got married while he was out of town for the weekend. Of this marriage, there were born 8 children. Helen, born 1859, Parks Bar, died February 4th, 1862, Mooney Flat. So she lived 3 years. Frederick Worthen Bradley, my great-grandfather, was born February 21st, 1863, at Mooney Flat. Martha, born July 6, 1865, Nevada City. Henry Sewell, born 1831, 1867, Nevada City, died 1872 at the age of 5. Gnarly. Edith, born September 19th, 1870, Nevada City, died 1914. So she got to the age of 44. In Sunnyvale. Mabel, born July 14th, 1873. Philip Reed Bradley, whose son I knew, born August 12th, 1875 in Georgetown. And Amy, born March 1st, 1879, Nevada City, died the next year in 1880. The varying birthplaces of these children is an indication of the life led by Virginia Bradley and the family, as the family moved from place to place in the course of her husband's career as a civil engineer. Virginia Bradley earned her first money by raising 9 turkeys when she lived at Mooney Flat. She sold these turkeys for $9, $1 a piece. And I have heard her say that $9 looked bigger to her then than any sum of money she has had since. I do not know what she spent it for. Right, so there she was, a determined young woman wanting to become financially independent herself in the 1860s or whatever. So, gotta love it. What a woman. And there's a story about her passed down through history where on her first Thanksgiving, she told her husband, who asked her to make a Thanksgiving dinner for him. She said, "You don't tell me what to do." So he went off to work that day, not expecting anything, and then came home, and she'd made a Thanksgiving dinner, but on her own volition because she wanted to, not because he told her to. And that was when she was, 16 years old, just determined from day one. Gotta love this lady. All right, continued. Um, when she went from Mooney Flat, her next move was to Indian Springs. When Frederick Worthen Bradley was still a babe in arms, she lived in a boarding house there, conducted by the Hatches. When I was a girl of 11, I was sent to Indian Springs and stayed there with a family named Mitchell, who had been our next-door neighbor at Mooney Flat. Mrs. Mitchell told me about the first turkey my mother ever cooked. She ran into her house in great distress one day to inquire how to get the feathers off the turkey and was told that it must be scalded with boiling water. So she put her boiler on and filled it with water. When it was boiling, she put the turkey in and left it in for 15 minutes, treating it the same as she would have with clothes. The Hatches told me it was no unusual thing for her to put her little boy on a bed, my great-grandfather Frederick Worthen Bradley, piling pillows all around him, giving him his bottle, and go out to play in the hay with the other children. A youthful mother, apparently. The greatest ambition she had for her 3 girls, this is so beautiful. The greatest ambition she had for her 3 girls was so to train and educate them that they would have had the satisfaction of earning their own living. How awesome is this in the 1860s or 70s, 1880s, 70s? So at this time, the phrase economic independence had not been invented, but her knowledge of life had taught her what a necessity economic independence was for a woman. My mother's fitness for public service was demonstrated as early as 1881 when the people of Nevada City elected her to serve a 3-year term on the Board of Education. This at the time when a woman in such a position was a novelty. Before that, her moral courage and independence of thought was demonstrated by her active support of Susan B. Anthony. When Susan B. Anthony appeared in Nevada City in December 1871 and spoke to an audience of 38 people. So the question is, how many women had been elected? Now, a woman couldn't vote, but they could run for office just like a felon. And so now, I just wonder, before 1880, I mean, our country was only 100 years old. In that 100 years, how many women had achieved this thing of being elected to a political office? And could Virginia Shearer Bradley be maybe, if not one of the first, maybe the first? And an untold, unknown story. Nobody knows this story. Not even the historians in the room in Nevada City that I visited. Anyway, that's why I'm so happy to find this, because that is so cool. Anyway, so my mother's fitness for public service was demonstrated as early as 1881 when the people of Nevada City elected her to serve a 3-year term on the Board of Education. This at the time was a novelty. Before that, her moral courage and independence of thought was demonstrated by her active support of Susan B. Anthony. Okay, sorry to repeat myself. Virginia Shearer Bradley was widowed at the age of 38 after 23 years of married life. She then had 5 children, none of whom had finished school. After the death of her husband on April 13th, 1881, Virginia Bradley remained in Nevada City until 1892 when she moved to San Francisco, at which time her youngest living child, Philip Reed Bradley, entered the University of California. She carried on until he had received his degree from the university, when she, unwillingly to sit in a corner and watch the world go by, entered upon active club work in San Francisco. In 1893, she became a commissioner of the Women's Board of California for the Chicago Exposition. This position took her all over Northern California and propaganda work for the Women's Department, and then kept her in Chicago during the duration of the fair. At the conclusion of the Chicago Exposition, she and her daughter Edith, who had been with her all the time, went to Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, visiting both her own and her husband's people. So in the winter of 1893-4, Virginia Shearer Bradley saw again the home of her childhood. She was a treasurer and a member of the board of directors of the California Club during the exciting and depressing years preceding and following the fire of 1906. At present time, Virginia Shearer Bradley is a member of the Sequoia chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Benicia Alumni Association, the California Club of San Francisco, the Association of Pioneer Women of California, honorary member of Western Association of California Pioneers, and an honorary member of Virginia Shearer Bradley, Camp Number 4, Spanish War Veterans, Kellogg, Idaho. So that's pretty cool. And then this is her. This is some good stuff. This is stuff I lost in the fire. But yeah, Henry Sewell Bradley, son of Daniel Poor, Martha Reed, Joshua Bradley, Mary Poor, shows the bloodline. You can always look at this. My kids can find this in 20 years on YouTube. All right. By doing this, it'll never be lost. That's the beauty of this. So this is a relative, James Fry. Where's the Fry guy? Hannah Fry. Josh Bradley had Daniel. I'm confused. Anyway, James Fry and Elizabeth Osgood. Anyway, so this is about James Fry. We'll just read it for posterity. James Fry sustained various municipal offices and was active in the service of his country. He was in the War of 1755, and at the commencement of the Revolutionary War was colonel in the militia. He commanded a regiment at Cambridge, of which James Prickett was lieutenant colonel and Thomas Poor was major. On the Memorial Day of the Battle of Bunker Hill, while Major Gridley's battalion of artillery was halted on the road to Charleston, Colonel Fry, who was absent from his regiment on the day before on duty, but the battle approaching, had found his way to the battlefield. Riding for Charleston, galloped up to them and demanded of the senior captain, "Why this unreasonable halt?" Was astonished at the reply and ordered them instantly to the field. This veteran also animated their courage by the glorious recollection, "This day 30 years since I was at the Battle of Louisburg when it was surrendered to us. It is a fortunate day for America. We shall certainly best the enemy." In Colonel Fry's regiment, 15 men were killed, 31 wounded in Bunker Hill battle. He died January 1776, age 66. Anyway, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm related to this guy, but I'll figure that out. So this is Daniel Smith. Anyway, I'm going to skip ahead because we got to get to Virginia Shearer's brother. This guy, here's her bloodline. It's pretty cool. I'll just make that legible so I can just... Anyway, yeah, going back to 17. Oh, there's Daniel Smith. So, yeah, this all turns into Virginia Shearer Bradley. And so I'm related to this Daniel Smith guy. And, well, let's read his story. Why not? Daniel Smith married Amelia Shull in 1783, had 12 children. See how many of them survived the first couple of years. Catherine, born October 13th, 1785, died 1785, so she didn't live. John, born January 29th, 1786. He survived. Elizabeth, born September 20th, 1787. Daniel born. So hey, all but two survived their childhood. That's pretty cool, or their first year. That's why in the undeveloped countries, the first year birthday party is such a big deal because they survive the first year. um, anyway, and then you can see the rest there. Daniel Smith was born in York County, PA, Pennsylvania, September 21st, 1755, and died in 1858, aged 83, 7 months, 11 days. He served in the Revolutionary War from 1779 until the close, was a private in 1777 in Captain Ambrose's Frederick County Militia, lieutenant in Captain Simpkins' Catoctin Battalion, May 13, 1778, a captain in Colonel Baker's Battalion, March 29, 1779. He lived from boyhood to death in Frederick County, Maryland, at Smithfield. In later years, was a large landowner and well as owning many slaves, interesting, whose names are still on record. A Christian man, highly respected in the community, who was born in Sheepcote while his mother was fleeing from Indians. He refused a pension from the U.S. government in his old age. It is shown by the records that one Daniel Smith, whose rank is not stated, served as a member of Captain Levin's Handy Company, 5th Maryland Regiment, commanded by Colonel W. Richardson, Revolutionary War. He is supported on a muster roll of the company dated September 8, 1778, as present and as having enlisted to serve during the war. His name appears on register dated Commissioner's Office, October 30th, 1784 of... All right, and that's that. So, okay. We got to read this. This is the coolest. It's one page, and this is some kick-ass American history right here. You're not going to believe this shit. So fun when you're like, oh, I'm related to that guy? That's pretty cool. All right, look at this. So Virginia's brother, George Shearer, my mother's brother, served in the Civil War from the beginning, being one of the Confederates, interesting, at Harper's Ferry when it was destroyed by John Brown. He was wounded at the Battle of Five Forks, after which captured and confined in the old Capitol Prison at Washington, D.C. From there, he made a daring escape and was harbored by Mrs. Surratt. She was the woman who was named in connection with the assassination of Lincoln by Mrs. Surratt until an avenue of escape was offered when he came to California. He later served as a volunteer in the Nez Perce Indian War in Idaho. He was serving as a guide to a detachment of U.S. cavalry during this Nez Perce War, when they reached an outlook point from which they could see a group of 17 Americans surrounded by a horde of several hundred Indians. These Americans had made a circle of their horses and were lying protected by them. The officer in command of the cavalry refused to give the order to advance upon these Indians, feeling that he had no right to risk as many men as he would have lost to save the lives of this small group. George Shearer, growing terribly outraged by this conduct, announced that he would go alone. And knowing the country well, he turned his horse into a ravine where he was out of sight of the Indians. Maybe I should call them Native Americans. Anyway, who could see the band of American cavalrymen on the plateau. So the Indians were looking up, hundreds of them, at the cavalry up above them. So that made it look like there was some, could be people coming down, right? So proceeding up this ravine, he made... so I'll go back a little bit. So George Shearer, growing terribly outraged by this conduct, announced that he would go alone, and knowing the country well, he turned his horse into a ravine where he was out of sight of the Indians, who could see the band of American cavalry men on the plateau.
Proceeding up the ravine, he made so much noise, loosening so many rolling rocks, that the Indians thought they were being tricked by the advance of another cavalry company from that direction and fled. Having killed only 2 of the Americans in peril, he was known as Daredevil George through the Civil War and also in Idaho. A stone cairn was built as a memorial to these 2 men, and the story of George Shearer's escape incorporated on a tablet. Doesn't say where it is, though, but that'd be interesting. So that's pretty cool. This guy freaking saved a bunch of people that the cavalry was afraid to, and that's cool. What a courageous fella. And that he was locked up. He was a Confederate. That's interesting. He was locked up in Washington, D.C. in the prison, which he escaped. And then he stayed with the lady who was connected to the Lincoln assassination before he found a route to California. And apparently, you were just, the law didn't follow you there, apparently. or maybe, there was amnesty given to the Civil War people. But that is the story. I lost that story forever. And these stories I don't think are really told or known. So my brother Fred had just taken up the study of Olasics at the Placerville Academy when his professor wrote to his parents that Fred would like to study for the ministry. His father went at once to Placerville and took Fred with him on a prolonged camping and surveying trip. He simply turned his mind in another direction. Upon his return to school, nothing further was ever said about studying for the ministry. It was during the spring of 1879 that Edith received the injury which resulted in her lameness. One of my clearest mental pictures of my father is that in which he, dressed in a shabby dressing gown, held Edith in his lap in a great armchair and read aloud to her from Dickens. It was he who carried on her education, so when she was able again to go to school, she rejoined her former class. All right, and that's the story. Thanks. Whew. Oh, thanks for letting me share that with you. So, super stoked because I lost this in the fire. Excuse me. Oh. All right. So anyway, sorry. It's weird. I almost never cry anymore, but once in a while I still do. So and it's always, if I mention the fire. But anyway, sorry I look like shit. I've taken almost 6,300 pictures so far of pictures, and they are so cool. And I can't wait to share these with the world because, my grandpa was a legit photographer, and all that videography too, or whatever film he shot is just remarkable. And now I can put freaking perfect dates on it and names to people, and just gonna be a fun research project for the rest of my life. But also, I'll be able to fit 20,000 pictures on a tiny little micro SD disc, copy it for my kids, and have. You could work with those pictures forever and do fun things. You could go to a town and bring them. Here, I have some pictures from your town 100 years ago. Go to whatever little historical society, or you could find the relatives of these people, who this is their grandparents or great grandparents who don't have these pictures of their relatives, and they probably enjoy receiving them. And there's so many, I have to imagine, for those who know who their ancestors are, their great grandparents, if I can get these out to the world,
there'll be a lot of people. Oh yeah, it's my grandpa. You know, because like all these people probably have like 100 ancestors now, right? You know, and 4 generations later, you know, when they had 9 kids who had 8 kids, you know, that family grew fast. So, uh, you know, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm really stoked and a little tired. Um, and I haven't been making videos as much as I should. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm trying to get it back together. Next semester, I'm taking a editing class. It should totally affect my ability to, you know, I'll go from thinking of it as, you know, making a video to, you know, shooting some kind of film, you know, that kind of a mindset, which would be good. So, um, yeah. Uh, and my next stop is going to be on the East Coast, so maybe I'll find some interesting stuff there to make videos of or whatever. But that is the story of Virginia Shearer Bradley. And it's just so cool. You go from like Hannah Dustin to her, like these just 2 amazing women in history that, I mean, very few people know their stories. Nobody knows hers. A few people know Hannah Dustin's, but in all cases, all these people's lives would make great movies. And then her son becomes, you know, Frederick Gordon Bradley, one of the greatest businessmen in American history, one of the greatest mining engineers, mining operators, and then his kids. And then I have a book that says we couldn't have won World War II without her son because of the tungsten and antimony that he mined that helped us make the steel, that helped us make the tanks. And yeah, anyway. And then this huge legacy at UC Berkeley. My great grandfather and all his brother or brothers went to Cal. His all 3 of his 4 sons went to Cal, and then my dad and his 2 brothers went to Cal. My grandmother met my grandfather at Cal in an art class, so it would be kind of cool if I could get in there and try to further this sort of study and documentation of their history, turn it into a story that is usable, you know, whether it's usable for a book or a movie or a TV show or whatever. It's worth trying to, you know, keep alive all these cool stories. And I love all the details in there. I mean, and the dates and the people. So yeah. Anyway, that is my favorite possession right there. That little, because that's proof that my great grandmother ran for office and was elected, you know, in 1881. Um, you know, I don't know how many women ran for office before 1881, but you know, she's the first one in history. I think she should be celebrated. Anyway, so yeah, Emily, I love you. I think you're watching. Yeah, I love you so much. Coming to see you, flying out tomorrow night. There's no way I'll finish this project, but I've made pretty good headway. I've been through about 10 photo albums. There's like 500 pictures per photo album, and then there's I found this what would you call it, like a scrapbook of things cut out from magazines and newspapers that my grandpa made before 1920 in the 1910s. What So that's interesting. There's stuff that's from 2019 or oh, excuse me, from 1919, and there's something from 2000 or 1913 in there. He was born in '04, so um, you know, he would have been 10, and so he started these when he was you know, 8 or 9 years old, and then that led him into photography. I don't know when exactly his first pictures are. It'll be interesting to see what I find. So far, the earliest photography is from 1921, which is now more than 100 years old, which is pretty cool. And how cool, I would love to and I got to go to some of these places, take the same shot, same perspective, right? I could do then and now photos of the same place. That might be fun. Um, and so on. Anyway, that's the story of my great grandmother, Virginia Shearer Bradley. Thanks for listening. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get on it, start making some more videos. Thank you to the cat the guy who there's one person who is signed up as a subscription, $4 a month, and that's very flattering. Thank you very much. I hope to make you proud. Um, and it's amazing. And I don't understand. I'm not fluent in the currency of all these bells and whistles they have with subscriptions, like offering people badges or whatever, all the little things, private chats, things like that. Maybe I'll get fancy enough to figure all that out. But regardless, I just want to say thanks to the studio cat. You guys got a cat for for a symbol who always says nice things too. Um, yeah, I really appreciate it. So, and everybody else who's been so kind and contributory to my survival and my recovery and my food and gas. My YouTube channel just got monetized, so it's funny. Right now, it seems like I am making approximately 40 cents a day, maybe 50. So it's sort of like nothing, but it's also like everything. It's amazing. It's kind of like my great grandmother's story of selling her first turkeys. And that money meant so much to her. But I suppose someday I'll look back on YouTube, maybe if I'm ever making any real money, and see that as just one of the steps along the way that I had to, experience. Um, but yeah, it says per 1,000 views of ads, I make $27 or something like that. So, which is maybe about the same number of views of videos. Again, I don't know exactly how that metric works, but that's what I'm learning in this process. And so it seems like, um, if I had a video that had 100,000 views, I'd make $270 maybe. If it got 1 million, it'd be 2,700, and if it was 10 million, it might be 27,000. At least that's the way it seems like the math works. Which I don't know if you've ever been curious about how math works when you monetize a YouTube channel, but that's what I'm noticing. And I like to try to break things down and understand those little details. Um, but yeah, so. Whew. Oh, and then of course, if I mentioned it before, I don't know if I mentioned it, but there's this just huge dilemma facing all of us nice people from the fire in Lahaina, and that is FEMA's going to start charging us all, on average, $2,000 each for rent, which is going to be a challenge. Luckily, I still have 2 months till I got to pay my first month's rent, so I just started driving Uber. I could probably earn it in 2 months, buy one more month of home, and then consider homelessness. Or they're building all these homes, and they're telling you got to go through the United Way to try to get into them, and you got to call 211, find a caseworker, whatever. Anyway, they're building all these homes, and we look at it, and they're like, oh, you got to get into a lottery for those, and it's like, why is there coordination? Like, there was coordination from Red Cross, right? They took us from the hotel, and then they handed us off to FEMA, who found us housing, right? So why wouldn't FEMA coordinate with the United Way, who's trying to help that transition, and just go, these are the people, let's help them go from one place to the other. And then there's like affordable rent there, which is would be a very helpful thing for everyone involved, because it's basically almost entirely a blue collar crowd. 20% of them were homeowners, and many of them are blue collar people. But I mean, guaranteed the 80% of renters were blue collar, and you know they can make 50 to 80 grand, in our town, but that doesn't make it easy to pay huge rent. So um, yeah, and then so the people who are building their houses, when they get into this new housing, they'll be moving out anyway and creating more space. So anyway, I just hope that I get lucky and get into these, because you can see them. They're hundreds of new units, and you just gotta hope you find a way into them before you become homeless. Because man, I mean, I could save almost $100 a day and not have to work to earn $100 a day if I lived out of my car for a little while. So I am tempted to do that. And of course, Maui, and then if I'm gonna start applying for jobs, and I'm gonna focus on hotels because they have showers and locker rooms in case I do become homeless. Then I'll have a gym with a shower. I'll have a job with a shower. There's showers all over the beaches. It's never cold. I got 2 cars. One of them can be part storage. I'll get a storage unit, right? And if you've watched my channel at all, I've drove across the United States and barely ever get hotel rooms and sleep in my car. So I've been training for this. Yeah, I'll have the best. I could go get one of those batteries, those solar batteries or generators, whatever you call them. I could I could have appliances at the beach and cook and freaking set up a TV and play Xbox wherever I wanted to out of my car if I really, it wouldn't have to be a bad life anyway, is what I'm saying. So, but we'll see. I don't want to act like it's the end of the world. It wouldn't be the end of the world if I had to spend a little time living out of my car. So yeah, I've already been working on figuring out what I would do with my car, where I would park them, where I could keep them, and one of them they could both be Uber cars, but one of them is the perfect Uber car because it's a 2008, and yeah, man, we'll see what happens. The unknown is out there, and as you know, I always get lucky, so I anticipate my luck will continue in one way or another. And yeah, thanks for watching my channel. Do no harm, do no crime. If you go out to dinner, make sure you tip 20%. Have class. Be one of the givers, right? There's 2 kinds of people in this world: good guys and bad guys. Givers and takers, right? People who thrive. What makes them happy is all the stuff they take in their lifetime. Yeah, you don't want to be one of those people. You want to be the person who is happy about all the things they've given in their life, right? All the giving. That's where you should be finding your joy. And whatever you do, don't marry the opposite person. If you're a giver, don't marry a taker. All right. Love you guys. Do no harm, do no crime. Thanks for watching. All good things in all good time. And aloha. Oh, wrong button. There you go.